Hi everyone, welcome back. In the last video, we learned how to use Tailwind CSS in a React application. We also used Tailwind CSS to build this navigation bar, and this navigation bar looks really nice. We also learned how to use inline CSS and external CSS file to style our application. And this is the code of our application. If you see carefully, you'll see in this app.jsx file, we have multiple components. For example, we have this app component, we have this navigation bar or nav bar component, and we have this search bar component. So we have one file and we have multiple components, and this file looks so messy. And in future, if we continue doing this file will become so big, it will become so difficult to navigate this. So in this video, we are going to build different files for different components. For example, we will make a different file for our navbar component and a different file for our search bar component. And we'll also learn how to make our application modular. And we will learn one more thing, that is this export default app. So now let's make different files for our navbar component and search bar component. So if you see in our folder structure, we have a source folder. In this source folder, we have app.jsx folder. Now to make our React application more modular, we need to make a new folder. That folder is components folder. And in this component folder, we will make all our components. We'll make our navigation bar component and search bar component in this component folder. So let's make a navbar component file over here. Let's make a new file in the component folder and let's call it navbar.jsx. JSX is the extension that we use in React application. You can skip this. You can also use normal JS extension. It will work, but let's stick to this JSX extension. Okay, now we have our navbar.jsx file ready. Now what we are going to do, we are going to copy this navbar code from our app.jsx. Let's cut this code and let's paste it, and let's paste it over here. So what we did, we removed the navbar component from this app component and put it in this navbar.jsx file. Now what we have to do, we have to export this navbar component, or should I say navbar function, from this file, and we have to import it over here in this app.jsx. So how do we export this navbar component from here? So to export a component, we write export default and the name of our component. This is known as default export. This is known as default export. Okay, so we exported our navbar component from this navbar.jsx file. Now we have to import it. So how do we import a default export? So to import, first write import and the name of the function or the name of the component that we exported. Name of the component is navbar from /component folder navbar. So we are done with our navbar component. So now let's remove this search bar component from this app component, and let's make another component, search bar component. So a new file in component folder, let's call it search bar dot, either you can use JSX or JSX. We are sticking with JSX extension. Press enter. Now we have to copy this search bar and let's cut it from our app file and paste it over here. Okay, now we have to export this file. How do we export this file, or how do we export this component? We write export default and the name of our component. This is known as default export. We'll also learn named export, but for now let's do default export. So now we have exported this search bar component. Now let's come to our app.jsx file. So do we need this search bar in app component? The answer is no. We don't need search bar in app component. So where do we need it? So we need the search bar in our navbar component. So let's open this navbar, and here we need search bar component. So let's import the search bar component. So how do we import search bar? We write import name of the file or name of the component search bar from dot slash search bar. Okay, why we are not using component over here? Because the search bar is present inside this component folder. That is why we are not using component. This means dot slash means in the current directory or in current folder search bar. Okay, so let's see whether our application works or not. So yeah, our application works fine. Now let's look at our app.jsx file. So now our app.jsx file or this app component looks really clean, and we made our React application modular. Okay, so we learned how to export a component, how to do default export. So we are doing a default export of this app component here. So there should be a place where we must be using this app component. So let's see where this app component is being used. So if you come to this main.jsx file, you'll see we are using app component over here. What is react.strict mode? What is react dom.create root? What is this folder? We are going to discuss this folder in our later module, but for now we are using this app.jsx component here in main.jsx file, and we are using this navbar component in our app.jsx component, and we are using this search bar component in our navbar component. So this is how you make your React application more modular, and it makes easier to navigate through this application. So we learned how to do default export. Now let's learn how to do named export. So to do name export, what we have to do, we just have to write export here. That's it. You just have to write export in front of your component name. And how do we import this file? So to import this file, this nav bar, let's come to our app bar. To import this file, we, instead of doing this, we use curly braces and then write the name of the component, import nav bar, and our navigation bar still works. So to do name export, we use curly braces, and to do default export, we don't use curly braces. So let's reverse it back. So let's make it default export and remove the name export. So far we learned how to do name export and how to do default export. So to do default export, you write export default and the name of your component, and to do name export, you write export in front of the name of your component. For here we write export. So let me summarize what we have learned in this video. In this video, we made our application more modular so that it will be easier in future to navigate this application. We learned how to do default export and how to do name export. So this is it for this video. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.